Hello and welcome to our workshop all about showing the value of your work in your activities section. Hello, Dr. Scott Wright. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, Dr. Ryan Gray. How are you?
I am excellent. I will preface this with saying I am battling COVID. The first time I have tested positive with COVID since all of this fun stuff has began. So if I'm hacking up along, just ignore me. I'll mute myself and we'll do okay. I'm feeling okay. Um, as you are joining here, we got over 100 people so far. Excited for everyone to join. Let us know where you are joining from, where you are at in school. If you're applying this cycle, if you need to reapply, what are your big fears and anxieties around this stressful, crazy process? Also, make sure to change your chat settings to everyone from host and panelists so that we can see where you are typing. We got Lori from
Guam.
Texas, Baylor from Vegas. Baylor would be cooler if it was Baylor. Baylor from Baylor. Um,
Yeah, all right.
Boston, San Fran, St. Louis. What camera are you using? I'm using a Sony A6400, I believe, is the camera. Davis, California. Hello, Crystal. Who's applying this cycle? Who's applying this cycle?
This current cycle or the coming cycle?
This upcoming cycle,
Okay,
starting in May
okay.
2024.
Me.
Mimi reapplying. Yari, all right. This upcoming cycle, May 24. Awesome. All right. So we're going to go through, we got some slides. We have some examples, and we will be allowing you to, so you can get ready, but make sure it's not distracting you too much. If you want to put an experience, a single experience, in a Google Doc and get a share link for that where the settings are correct so that anyone with a link can view it. We will ask for those here in a little bit so that we can review some activity descriptions because Dr. Wright, one of the biggest things that you and I see and our team sees when looking at applications, and we saw a bunch over the last week or so. We did a special reapplication session um, where over, I think, close to 60 people signed up for those, which was awesome.
Hmm.
Um, Students needing to reapply. And one of the things that we see are these activities that just kind of fall flat or sometimes
Hmm.
go a little overboard. And I'm like, oh, that sounds a little arrogant. I don't think you're arrogant,
Hmm.
but it sounds a little arrogant.
Right.
What is so important about these activity descriptions and activities in general?
Well, I think it helps the medical schools understand what you've been up to, some of the details about kind of what you've been doing, whether it's employment or a student organization or volunteering or whatever. And it also gives them insight into what that meant to you, what it was all about. Now, this gets extended when we talk about AMCAS and the Texas service, for example, where they do a most meaningful. They you choose three most meaningful of these, and you get a little bit broader ability to talk about that. And so these really give, I think, insight into where do you spend your time when you're outside of school, and these are quite meaningful to the medical schools.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I got a couple links being sent. Don't send them yet. Well, I'll let you know when we're ready for those. How can we submit? I just mentioned we'll have you submit a Google link here in a little bit. All right, let's rock and roll. We'll jump into our session here. Let me know. You guys should be able to see this showing the most value in your activities screen. Let me know if you can see that, and we'll continue on. I can see, says Patrick. All right, let's rock and roll. So, we are the Medical School HQ advising team. Myself, Dr. Ryan Gray, Dr. Scott Wright, as well as Dina Golini, Courtney Lewis, and Verinia Granum. We have a very small, intimate team. Myself, I'm a former Air Force flight surgeon, went to medical school at New York Medical College. Founded Medical School HQ in 2012 and co-founded Mapped in 2020. Mapped is a software platform we have. I have one slide about that a lot later. And Dr. Scott Wright, former director of admissions at UT Southwestern, retired executive director at TMDSAS. For those who don't know, those are the fun initials of the Texas Medical and Dental School Application Service, the
Right.
oldest application service for medical school in the
Correct.
country.
This is correct. Don't you
And
forget it
yes,
either.
Dr. Wright, you've been with us for several years now.
Yep.
So I wanted to start off with I forgot there's animation on the slide, so forgive me for having animations. Let me just skip right ahead. I wanted to start off with the categories for activities, Scott. One of the first things that students maybe don't understand is that, especially for AMCAS, you only get 15 spots, and there are now
Mhm,
18 or 19. They just added
mhm,
social justice and advocacy as a category last
mhm.
year. You're not going to have one spot for every category.
Correct.
Explain the thought process between categories and checklists, this checklist mentality of like, I need something for everything.
Yeah, so the checklist mentality is sort of on the student side of things, where the students, often, whether it's subconscious or a conscious decision, feel like there's a list of things that you got to do to get into medical school, and I've got to do everything on that list, one of at least one of every one of those things, and I've got to check them off like I'm checking off a list of things that I've done before I went out for errands in town. And so that is destructive, I think, because it becomes very obvious to the medical schools that that's what's going on. And there's a lot of ways that the medical schools kind of can determine that. On the other hand, what these categories are trying to do, this is a pragmatic approach by the application services to really address. They want to know for each of the activities that you have, what is this? What does it represent? What kind of area are we talking about here? Are we talking about a hobby or some sort of other meaningful experience? Are we talking about healthcare experience, or are we talking about employment, or what exactly is this? It gives the medical schools the ability to sort of put them all together in one group so that they know, because these are all leadership, these are all community service, et cetera. So it's a very pragmatic thing on the part of the medical schools, I think.
Yeah, and then outside of these different categories, the AAMC has promoted the core competencies, and there are
Mhm,
close to 15 core competencies. And so again,
mhm,
students are like, "Oh, one core competency per activity." And I was just on a workshop um with the UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine, and that question came up. It was a workshop that the School of Admissions or the admissions committee from the school was putting on for advisors, and that question came up from an advisor of like, should our students specifically call out core competencies in these activities to go, this activity taught me whatever core competency. The admissions
integrity
committee
or
was like,
whatever.
no,
Yeah,
like that is not what we expect. That is not what we
right,
want. It
right,
doesn't
right.
make for good writing and good communication. So it sounds like very, very similar kind of process there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Let's keep rocking. And for those of you joining us, yes, it is being recorded. Everyone will get a link to the recording later. If you have questions, go ahead and ask. I have the chat opened up here as well, and questions that come across that are kind of relevant to our conversation, we'll throw them in as well. Some nuts and bolts here about the application. There are differences. How many of you are applying to multiple services? Let's start with that. Applying to AMCAS, ACOMAS, TMDSAS, planning AMCAS and ACOMAS, me. So
Yeah, a
first of
lot
all,
of
I
them.
want to let you all know, right? It's very normal for students to apply to multiple application services. It's one of the reasons why we can't really look at data from one application service that shows, hey, acceptance rate is 40%, because the application services don't talk to each other. And a student may have gotten into one application service school, but not another application service school, and then they're not counted as an acceptance on the other application service. So
Mhm.
fuzzy math makes the acceptance rate better than the individual acceptance rates across. So awesome. So Dr. Wright, one of the things that comes across all the time is like, okay, great, if I'm applying Corinne here, AMCAS, TMDSAS, and a COMIS, where should they start? Do they write completely separate activities three separate times? Do they start with writing one and then cutting down? Like what
Mhm.
have you seen work as a
Mhm.
good strategy there?
I think probably the best strategy, if they're applying to all three services, is to start with AMCAS,
Mm,
because that's the highest number of character value for each of the essays for the activities, and then you can cut back from that for ACOMAS and then for TMDSAS. But I think it's easier to cut back than sometimes to expand, and so I would suggest that. I think it's an effective method, and plus, I think that AMCAS. My feeling would be you would complete AMCAS, then Texas, then ACOMAS. That would be the progression of things. Now, we're not talking about months to do those things. We're
yeah,
talking about a series of really weeks.
yeah,
The window being for completing all three of them.
yeah. And that kind of makes sense as well, timing wise. AMCAS typically takes the longest for the verification process,
Mhm,
so ideally
mhm.
you're getting that out of the
Right,
way. A COMIS
right.
historically is the fastest. And
Yep.
TMDSAS has a little bit of a different process where they're not verifying
Mhm.
grades until later. Some of
Correct,
their initial
correct.
verification process is residency status, some other stuff. So
Mhm. Right, that's
yeah,
right.
that all makes sense with that as well. So yeah, as you can see on this slide here, right there are some big differences. AMCAS limits you. You only have 15 spots, and some of you non-trads out there, you're like, I have 30 things that I've done, and the question is, how do I choose? And that
Mhm,
that is the challenge, right? Is
mhm.
figuring
Right.
out how do you best tell your story that may need 20 spots, but you only have 15. Scott, when a student comes to you with that question in our one-on-one advising sessions, how do you have them kind of step back and evaluate what to put on an application and what to cut out?
Well, I ask them typically to arrange to iterate all of their activities. So if there's 25 of them, or whatever number, put them all down, and then I want them to look at them, and I'll do it with them if I'm advising them. And what I want to look for is, are there ones that can be collapsed together? Shadowing is a good example. You shadow this person, that person, this person. Those don't need to be three different activities. That can be collapsed into one.
Yeah,
Same thing with other things like hobbies. Can all go together. So there's a variety of things sometimes that can be collapsed together to provide space. And then I want the applicant to look at each activity and to note what do I want to communicate to the admissions committee by telling about this activity? What's my goal here? And then evaluate for each one of them, what are the goals here that I want to communicate? How meaningful were these things to me? And to begin to put together a hierarchy. Often what we have is students who they have their 13 they know for sure these are 13 of them, but I've got five and I need to carve two out of those five to make the 15. How do I? So that's a much more common sort of situation where they kind of know a subset, and then they're kind of trying to figure out which ones to do for the others. And it's just it's all about what you're trying to say to the admissions committee, and how you want to tell that story that you have, about why this is important to you.
yeah. One of the more common mistakes that I see that students make, or oversights in judgment or thought or whatever, is the fact that many students think the activity section is specifically restricted to medical activities,
Hmm.
activities that support me in being a physician. Um, I wonder, I don't know if I've asked you this before. What is the activity that stands out the most to you, like non-medical activity that you've seen in an application?
Mm. Well, I had an applicant. This is a number of years ago who sold me Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Nice.
This was a job, her job. She did as I recall, I think it was Mary Kay Cosmetics, and she was very successful in doing it. And this particular applicant was from her background was Vietnamese. Well, she ended up taking a year off, and had a gap year, and went back to Vietnam and established a system with Mary Kay Cosmetics salespeople in Vietnam to
Wow.
give these women in Vietnam the capacity to, have a things that they value, and to have their own income that they could then do things with, and et cetera. So it was an amazing activity, and that sticks out in my mind as one that was really, quite notable.
Yeah, big impact there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I remember
absolutely.
that story. I remember you telling that
Yep.
story before.
Yep.
Um, so Annalise here says, when listing shadowing under one activity, do you recommend listing all shadowing experiences with dates and specialty bullet point, or choose one stronger story related to shadowing, or no story because you are an observer in that case? Yeah, so listing is perfectly fine. Shadowing is typically super passive, so there's typically not much to say about it. So no issues just listing dates and hours and stuff and specialty.
Yep. Yep.
Um, one more question here, Bonnie. I have activities that can fall into several categories. Example, editor for a publication, leadership versus extracurricular. How do I approach this? If I show leadership in activities and I classify them in different categories, do I need to explicitly list something as a leadership activity? Thank you for your help. This happens a lot, is where there are instances where one activity kind of spans a
Mhm.
couple different categories. What's your
Mhm.
best piece of advice for students when they're dealing with that?
Well, I think for AMCAS, I think it's a no-no because you're so limited in the number of spots. I think you want different activities. For ACOMAS and TMDSAS, where you can have as many activities as you want, they do give guidance about that in the application instructions about whether they are okay with double dipping or stuff like that. Generally, I say kind of stay away from that and try to include all of the things that you had from an experience, because if an admissions committee starts to feel as if you're padding this stuff, and you're putting things in multiple places, and maybe to expand the number that you have, so it seems like you're really involved in lots of stuff, and then that kind of gets a little icky sometimes for the committees. They start wondering what's that all about. So I would
Yeah.
just be careful with that.
Yeah, just be careful. Don't double dip hours. And yeah, I know Comus has historically given some guidance on splitting an activity into multiple
Yeah.
categories. Again, just don't double dip those hours. So
Yeah.
good. Would multiple hobbies come off as padding? Yes, it could.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. All right, let's keep rocking here. So again, you'll see on the slide, AMCAS and TMDSAS have most meaningful, very different character counts there as well. Acomas does not, unfortunately. I guess Acomas doesn't care what's meaningful to you. Um, so the question ultimately comes down to, well, what do med schools want? What do they care about when they're reading this? Again, Scott, you kind of mentioned they're looking for kind of who you are,
Hmm.
what you've been spending your time doing.
Hmm.
Oops, sorry,
Hmm.
the impact that you have had um on this world and all
Yeah,
this stuff. So yeah,
that's right.
that's right. That's what we do. All right.
Hmm.
Um, We talked briefly about these competencies. I'm going to just
Hmm.
scan over this real quick. You all can Google double AMC core competencies. It's been updated recently with a few changes. Again, these aren't here to use as a checklist. They're just some guidelines to think about. And some schools adopt them. Some schools have changed them,
Hmm.
created their own. So
Hmm.
just something to think about.
Hmm.
Um, Scott, this is one of your sayings. It's not
Yep.
about the what, it's about the so what. What does that mean?
Yep. The what is the resume. You did this, you did that, you participated in this club, you were president of that thing, whatever. The what, I did this, I did that. The so what is, so what? Who cares? Why is this important? Why should we, care about this? And that's what the medical schools really are more interested in. What Okay, everybody's done this or that, or so many applicants have done this thing or that thing, etc. um, tell me more about why this was important to you. Why was this something that you participated in, and what did you get out of it? Why was this meaningful to you? And that's, I think, the difference between a good application and a great application. In terms of the written work, at least, it is
Yeah.
delving into that deeper sense of the value of this activity to you. What was the value? And I encourage students to think about it in terms of two questions. The first and most important question is, what did you learn about yourself in that activity? What did you learn about yourself by doing that, by participating in that, whatever it was? And then the second question is relevant to some things and not as much to others. But the second question is, what did you learn about medicine? What was this about to you, in terms of, did you learn anything about medicine that was important to you? And most importantly, is combine those two questions together. In other words, why was this important about, what did I learn about me, and what did I learn about medicine, and what did I learn about me potentially involved in medicine? Now, like I said, the medicine question won't apply to some things. Don't try to fit a
Yeah.
square peg into a round
Yeah,
hole.
I'm glad you added
Um,
that, because students will be like,
yeah.
look at this is my hobby of running. And then they're like, running taught me discipline, which I know I'm going to need as a medical student and a
I
physician. I'm
don't
like,
do that.
don't do that.
Don't do that. No,
Uh,
no, no, no. That Yeah, you have to think about how that's relevant to the particular activity.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. And there again, I have a button on my sound pad here for activities that I'll push here real quick. There are no rules. There really are not a ton of rules when it comes to writing the activity descriptions. A lot of this is personal preference. A lot of this is experience that Scott has, and the experience that I have had talking to people like Scott and other deans and directors of
Hmm.
admissions over the years. So there's typically not one right way to do this. So what you may see
Hmm.
tonight, you're going to go to your pre-med advisor, and the pre-med advisor is going to go, oh, don't listen to Dr. Gray. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's okay, right? That doesn't mean I'm wrong, doesn't mean they're wrong, just means we have different opinions on what potentially is effective. And students get into medical school with very different applications. And it's always hard to know um, what caused them to get in spite of, despite of
Hmm.
whatever. Um,
Hmm.
so the thing I wanted to add on was there is a style of writing that I personally don't like, where the last sentence of every activity is, this activity taught me that I learned
Correct.
X. And almost all of it is super generic, super cliche, right? I learned that empathy is important in patient care. I'm like, duh, right? Empathy is
Duh,
important in life.
right?
So I would recommend, again, this is not a decree that you have to follow, but I recommend trying to stay away from the thought process of what did I learn in this activity, and
Yes.
think about
Yes.
it. What did it mean to me?
Yep.
Just a little bit of a
Yep.
switch of thought process.
Yes. Absolutely.
So here's a question. Would sharing a single anecdote be more powerful than describing what we did in that role? Scott, a lot of times, this is one of my big things that I point out. It's like I was an EMT.
Yes.
As an EMT, I responded to calls
Right,
and I did
right.
X, Y, and Z. And 90% of
We
the
all know
character
that.
count
Yeah.
is used explaining to someone who very, very likely knows what an EMT is and does. And you're basically just listing job duties.
Resume. Yeah.
A resume, and that doesn't convey impact, that doesn't convey
Right.
personality, who you are. So
Hmm.
yeah, an anecdote may work for that. Doesn't mean an anecdote's necessary, but try to stay away from just listing job duties.
Hmm.
um
Absolutely.
and some of you, there may be an experience where I'm looking at it going, I have no idea what that experience is. So one
Hmm.
sentence to explain it real quick, maybe all you need, and then you can jump
Hmm.
into showing impact and other stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So a couple do's and don'ts, and then we'll jump into some to some show and tell. So write about personal impact, right? We talked about this. How did it impact you? How did you impact others? Passions and interests are huge when it comes to
Hmm.
your activities. I can really
Hmm.
see a student's personality shine through on really good applications.
Hmm.
And then things not to do. Right? Check off boxes. This is not your time to go, okay, I did that, I did this, I did that. List duties and responsibilities we just talked about. And then please, please, people, Grammarly, install Grammarly. Medicalschoolhq.net/Grammarly is, I think, an affiliate account. We make like $5 if you sign up and use it. I'll put it in the link there if you want to use that. Grammarly. ChatGPT works great for
Hmm.
grammar correction stuff. Don't use
Hmm.
ChatGPT to write your stuff for you.
Nope.
But if
Nope.
you write it and put it in and go, hey, can you spell check this and paste it in there, I would
Hmm.
be fine with that.
Hmm.
All right. One of the big things for me when I'm looking at an application is uh, the way that you list dates on there really starts to show some consistency. When did you start doing things? When did you stop doing things? Having that visual um,
Hmm.
really helps an admissions committee. Is this someone who potentially is interested in this, or are they just checking off a box? So I just
Hmm.
wanted to throw this slide in because the consistency is really important. So don't just do something, get 100 hours and think that you're done, and then 2 years later you realize, oh shoot, like that wasn't good. I should keep doing
Right.
it.
Yeah.
All right, let's start to look at some activity descriptions and let's get some feedback. I have a couple here, and then if you guys want to start sending some links, we can do that as well. And they were ready. The links are coming in fast and furious. All right, I'll let you guys read this. And when you're done reading, go ahead and give your feedback. We have found through our group coaching program, Application Academy, that when students give feedback, they are growing as a writer themselves, being able to critique other writing. All right, what do you guys think? Is it okay to have the same job for 3 years or changing and get different experience? You can have the same job. M says impressive. Final reflection sentence is a little simple but effective. Aiden says far-fetched. Ooh, we got a skeptic in the crowd.
Oh,
Far-fetched. What's far-fetched
whoa.
about that, Aiden? I would love to know. I don't like how we describe her as scared and her body as frail. Why not? Feels a little more like a meaningful experience story. Isn't a little much for a 700 word count. It's 699 characters, 700 characters.
Boom, boom,
Why is it
boom,
a little
boom.
much? It's one under. So Scott, this is I'm assuming like an EKG tech, some sort of
Mm-hmm,
medical assistant, something
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
interacting with a patient. They don't in their 700 characters here say, as a medical assistant, I do X, Y, and Z. As a EKG tech, I do X, Y, and Z. They jump straight into a story. Um, Thoughts on this activity?
So I like this activity. I think it tells a story. It tells me what is important to you. What was important to this applicant was recognizing the confusion and terror and anxiety that this person was having, and then holding her hand.
Mhm.
That is massive to me. It tells me what values this person has. And it also tells me that they were involved in this at a very, pretty substantial level, as a medical assistant or an EKG tech or ECG tech or whatever. So I think that it tells me a lot without listing it like a resume, and
Yeah.
it's interesting. I can connect with it,
Yeah.
so I like this one quite a bit.
Yeah, I really like this one. There's a question here. It doesn't really tell you why it was important to them. The reflection's a little generic. It probably could use a little bit of a stronger
Hmm,
reflection
hmm,
than just saying it was a privilege learning this stuff.
hmm,
So yeah,
hmm.
I agree that that could be increased. But yeah, I like what you talked about, Dr. Wright, the fact that like I can understand that there's probably some empathy, some compassion that the student has
Right,
based on their writing
right.
without them saying, I
I am
understood.
compassionate.
Yeah, I understood that this person was scared. And so I used my skills of compassion. And that's what we see in a lot of
Hmm,
applications that
hmm,
don't get
hmm,
accepted is they're just very over the top and quote unquote what I say selling these skills. And
hmm,
this does
hmm.
a good job reflecting on this one encounter to show that impact.
Yep.
But all right, number two. Alexa says good use of numbers to show impact. Alexa, are you an application
Mhm.
academy person? Because that's stuff that we say all the time. Or did you
Right.
read my books or something? Uh, Baylor, I like some numbers, but the percentages are meh. Baylor just
No, I
doesn't
saw
like
that one too.
percentages. Hmm. Um,
Oh yeah,
Less
there's
memorable than
Alexa.
the last
And,
one, right? So Sasha, or Sasha, this is very different, right? This is one where um, you're working as a conference and social media director. You're not going to be able to like, I held this patient's frail body hand, whatever. And so for some activities, anecdotes aren't going to work to show that
mhm.
impact. Now,
Right.
maybe there's an employee that you were working with and they were stressed out and you can have a little anecdote of interacting with them, but Scott, this shows a lot of impact.
Yeah, it does. It shows quite a bit of impact, and I think it's impressive. I like the use of the numbers. Although I like one of our students in the chat mentioned, the percentages get me lost a little bit. So there's a lot of numbers in that one sentence. uh, where it's kind of I would say I would have probably recommended a change to this where you say and received over 60 abstracts, a 50% increase over 5 years or something like that, so that you're not getting, it's a little overwhelming the way it's presented here. But all in all, I like it. I think
Yeah.
it's an effective, but much different than the last one, but an effective thing to have put forward.
Yeah. So let me kind of I'll reread this in a way to show you students, you all, how the far majority of applications that we see, how this would be written. It says it would say, I joined the LGBT Health Workforce Conference as a social media director, where I worked closely with the planning committee to develop our first Facebook outreach initiative. Through this teamwork, I learned great communication skills to work with each other and find our strengths and weaknesses. Because of this teamwork, blah, blah, blah. And it would be all about teamwork and communication skills and organization skills. That is how the far majority of students are going to write these activities. And I'm telling you, as someone who reads so many of these, it just gets over the top, and it's just like, okay, great,
Mhm,
another student who has communication skills. It doesn't tell me anything about you. It just tells me what you think I want to know.
mhm,
And guess what? You're wrong. That's not what I want to know. So yeah, I really like this one too. Because it shows those numbers, it shows that impact, and we
mhm.
can make some assumptions based on that. That this
Yep,
person probably has good communication skills,
yeah,
probably
and
has good
organizational
organization
skills.
skills,
Yep,
right?
yep,
Without saying
yep,
those things.
yep, exactly.
All right. Let's do one more here. Let me go find um yeah, let's do this one. I don't know if this was the best next one, but we'll have lots of other ones to look at. So seems like students are not vibing with this one as much. Someone asked which like what activity is this? This is going to be oops. Uh hold on. My mouse got a little crazy. Basically a teaching assistant position.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
So telling, not showing, more telling than showing. A lot of extraneous info. It
mhm,
doesn't really help tell the
mhm,
story. Giving personal statement vibes. Hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't like to see this in a personal statement either.
mhm. No.
Intro is a little too long.
Mhm,
Competencies stated. Yeah. So you guys see the difference here?
yeah.
Scott, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. There's a lot of generalities in here that I don't really connect with. Um, there's a lot of lost space in terms of character count by repeating things. I would much rather have seen a anecdote here to tell about maybe the classroom interaction that I'd had with this diverse group. I think this is me. I'm kind of like what Baylor said. On the other one.
Yeah.
I'm not. It's not like awful, but it's not. I didn't connect with it at all.
I don't know. I think it's pretty awful. Yeah. So right. Again, we talked about like you don't have to tie everything to medicine, and this person said, "Hey, this encouraged social interactions with a diverse group. This helped me build positive interpersonal skills directly from the core competency list, right? That
Right,
aided my
right.
subsequent interactions in a clinical setting. Like I don't need to know that. I don't need to know
Yeah,
that."
yeah,
So yeah, so this is a good example of moving on. All right.
yeah.
So let's Someone said, I mean, got to give them some cred. They're first gen. No, I don't give them any credit because they're first gen. There are enough resources online, to uh, to work with that. Someone said they wanted to see this example. Oh yeah, I remember this example. This is a great one. So short, sweet. This is probably uh, a, a newer TMDSAS now that's 500 characters versus 300
Right.
characters, or a little bit long for an old TMDSAS
Mhm,
one.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
1 out of 10 says Hamza. Just a job description, no impact. Yeah. And again,
Yeah,
sorry, let me change
yeah,
my mouse setting. It's going crazy. This is a very common example of what we see in the activities.
yeah,
Let me
yeah,
show this one more, because it's a good dichotomy to being a server, and then we'll jump into URLs. If you guys have read my one of my books, this is from one of my books. Example 5. Chef's kiss.
yeah, yeah. This is a good one.
Yeah,
It's
really good.
interesting.
It's
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's not over the top. It's very descriptive. I can see it. I can
yeah,
smell it. I can hear it.
yeah,
And it
yeah,
shows they really like this experience. It wasn't just something they were
yeah,
doing. The
yeah,
passion comes across here. So yeah, just awesome. Awesome,
yeah,
awesome. All right,
yeah. It's a good one.
let's jump into your activities. Let me scroll back up to where these were all submitted. All right. Let me change my setting. All right. So, music, hobby.
Okay.
What do you all think? Why the end date? You have to have an end date for your activity, so they're getting started. Nice lighthearted story. I like it. Maybe include what type of music they like to play for joy. Yep. So it's something that I always say, Scott, is like just one tidbit of information if you're like a hobby like this, music, like what genre of music, or if you like reading, what
Mm-hmm.
genre of book do you like?
Mm-hmm.
Those
Mm-hmm.
little threads of information can connect with an interviewer and go, oh, like I love jazz too. And then you just talk about jazz for 30 minutes.
I like this one.
Yep.
I think it's interesting. It doesn't push over the top in terms of what I learned from this and how it's applicable to medicine or blah 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 that kind of
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
But it tells you some interesting information. They play the piano, the bass guitar, and the guitar. They do it. It seems like for enjoyment, and that's cool. And they even say I enjoy or I agree to love the rhythms of ragtime, stride, and rock music. And so there's just a lot here to like, I think.
Yeah. Agree. Good
So
job,
whoever
whoever that
that
was.
was, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, awesome,
a great start for a student submission.
right? Mm,
How old can activity be? Anything post high school
hmm.
should be fine. Eva says providing a little more context may be helpful to know. Yeah, I'm a little lost with this one, Scott. Like
I
there's
totally
some
am
great
too.
writing, but I'm not sure like who are you? What's going on? Who's the
Yeah, and
preceptor?
there's so much here. I don't know how to really handle it. It's
Yeah.
just like I can't wrap my head around what's going on here because
Yeah.
there's so many things happening.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, I
this is
think
good.
if you focus in on your parents' health declining and then help. So I guess I'm so confused. Are you caring for your parents or are you caring for
Sister, it
your
looks like.
sister? I was
Yeah.
confused about that. And then, yeah, and there's just, and then the whole first part about the preceptor and the badge printing. I don't know what that's all about. So,
Yep.
yeah, there's just a lot that I didn't connect with here.
Yeah, so this is, I think, a good example of just trying to be a little bit too creative with these. Like,
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
advisors yell at me all the time. They're like, Dr. Gray, our students just tell stories, and it's just like not I'm like it's not my fault. Um, so I think just it's a little bit over the top with the quotes and lingering on the word
Hmm.
patient. Like we don't need to be that
Hmm.
creative to tell a very powerful anecdote. So I think there's some great stuff here. I think we can definitely work on this, and it would be awesome. So it's a good start.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let me go back, go find another one. No, that one wasn't shared properly. That one wasn't shared properly. Snoozes, you loses, my friends. All right. All right. So this one is.
His little crying face went flying up the. I guess somebody was upset that those weren't. Yeah, there it goes.
All right. So here's a most meaningful activity. So let's take a peek at this one.
Yep.
Yeah, what do you think, Scott?
So I'm not a fan. I don't. I think this is over the top, especially the most meaningful part.
Mhm,
In the way I want to note that, and what bothers me in terms of the writing as well as the thrust of it, in the most meaningful part is how many of these sentences start with the word I regularly traveled. I met kids. I saw caregivers. I leveraged. I built. I initiated. This is a resume.
mhm,
This is a resume in narrative form. I would be much more interested in a story that came out of this experience that you could talk about in more depth. Talk about some of these southern citizens that had problems with
mhm.
an issue or whatever. But I find it very selling. Like I'm selling you me.
Yeah. I would have loved to see the impact of all of this stuff that they did
Hmm.
on this
Hmm.
population. Yeah, so a lot of these, right? I leveraged my research, I initiated this, I co-led that, I developed this. All of this could probably be kind of put into just one or two sentences with room
Hmm.
for some other stuff. So I think there's
Some
some
reflection
awesome,
or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's some
I mean, it sounds
obviously
like an awesome
awesome stuff.
experience. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I
Yeah.
just don't like the way it's presented. I would probably say in the general description, you could put some information about what you did, potentially. And then in the most meaningful, tell a story
Mhm.
about what this was all about to you and how that comes forth through this particular story that you can tell. Um, I just I just find it a little me, kind of
Yeah.
it's okay, but it's not not something that I connect with that much.
Yeah, the mom stroke here, I agree with someone who just said it. I don't think it belongs here. Seems
Yeah.
out of place. Um, Medical schools are going to understand that you're going to start and stop things. And so the student here is most likely putting it in here to show why they stopped doing this. I don't think you
Hmm.
need to do that. You don't need to explain.
Hmm.
And then just
Right.
one other comment here for role. So usually there's like an experience name where you put your role. Senior manager of learning. This may have been your technical role. You don't have to put your technical title in your application. So I would put something that a layperson would understand what it is that you did and who you were in this role, and not what your
Hmm.
technical title was.
Yeah, resume title or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good
Yeah.
one.
And it sounds like an awesome experience that you had, whoever this is, and I
Yeah.
certainly don't want to minimize that. But just,
Heck
I
no.
think in the
Yeah.
way you're presenting it, I think it could be a better presentation of it in a more captivating one.
Yeah. That one's not formatted correctly, so I'm gonna skip that one. That one's not formatted. Let's focus on the second one here. Hold on one second. Change the view. Yeah. All right. We got a hobby here. All right. So see a big difference here, right? Some
Yeah.
fun read. It felt like I was on an
Hmm.
adventure with them.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
This is a good one. I
yeah,
like this one. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm gonna be a contrarian. I really like it, except for this sentence here. This sentence here to me reads, I'm really good at working hard, and I know med school is going to be really hard, and so I'm just going to show you that I can work really hard.
Mm.
That's what I take away from this sentence. So I think we can change around what's being said here, because ultimately I don't think long hours and tests and stuff are what you need to get across. Again, I'm 99% sure it's there to show, hey, look, I'm really good at taking tests and really good at working hard. And oh, by the way, I know it when I'm doing my surgery rotation, I'm gonna have to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I would just change up that. But everything else is really cool.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to lose that sentence and recover that character count, I'd be interested in knowing in hearing a little bit more in the next sentence about that whole other world you saw underneath the water. Give me some details about that, or that's cool to say, but other than the shark one, what else was amazing to you or whatever. Maybe it was certain things. I like it when I can visually in my mind's eye, when I can mentally see what's happening, and it draws me into kind of what you're talking about. I like that. Yeah,
Mm,
more imagery. Exactly.
yeah. Um, just trying to bring up another example. Guys came prepared today. I like it. Um, that one I think we read. Yes. Mhm. All right, let's look at this one. For some reason, um my like night mode turned on. I gotta fix that, but I don't know. I don't know how. That's super weird. It just randomly turned on. Um,
Well,
oh,
it's not here, so maybe.
uh, I'll ig- I'll ignore it. Just to zoom in. Zoom in. All right. So we got Panhellenic Affairs Vice President, Housing Chairwoman, Philanthropy Chairwoman. Right. I like this as an example. We can learn something here. Religious hobbies are fine. Hamza says big and basic, good use of money for tangibles. Scott, is $400 a lot of money?
I thought about that when I saw this. It seems not much to me, so I
Yeah.
don't know if I would say that. I'd probably leave that out. I would just
Yeah.
say we. we're able to raise, money for Girls on the Run during the virtual, whatever. But
Yeah.
this one, to me, I don't know. It's okay, I suppose, but it just doesn't do much for me in terms of it's not very exciting. It's not very informative, really, about what this meant to you,
Yeah.
and kind of what the value of these leadership positions had to you. I mean,
Yep.
I know what philanthropy is, so I can kind of assume what a philanthropy chairwoman would do. So I don't know. I It just seems okay, but not great to me.
Yeah. I think one of the things you're vibing is, or not vibing, is there's no reflection here. It's like
Yeah, no,
I did
none
this,
at
I did this,
all.
I did
Right.
this, and there's zero reflection. So when I finish reading this, I'm like, oh, I'm glad we did this one. This is a good example of where I get yelled at by advisors. Like, students just tell stories. Now, obviously, there's not a story here, but there's no reflection. What did this mean to you? And I really,
Hmm.
really want you to think
Hmm.
about that. And that should
Yeah.
be kind of that closing sentence of what that meant.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
don't
I
need to
agree.
literally write this meant blah 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 or
Right. Right.
um whatever.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can pull one more. Uh, saw this one already. All right, let's do this one. This scribe one. This is common. Zoom in. Ollie says, I think it's trying to push. I know what doctors go through.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, huh?
Hmm.
Intro seems forced. Yeah. Scott, what do you think of this one?
Well, yeah, it's a good first effort.
Yep.
I think that the top paragraph annoyed me a lot because it made it seem like, number one, the first sentence is like, okay, duh, I get it, that, big revelation there. And then I became more knowledgeable and aware of physician burnout. So I applied to describe my time as a trauma allowed me to gain great insight into the medical field. That's what I want to know about. What great insight are you talking about? I want to know about that. That's my area of interest, not so much. that you worked there for a year and a half, and that you're saying that in the narrative, but we would already know that by the dates and stuff. So you didn't need to say that. I want to know about the great insight in the medical field while assisting. I'd like to know more about that. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So this first sentence, right? The COVID-19 pandemic changed healthcare around the world. One of the things that I tell students to do all the time is go sentence by sentence. Is this a generic sentence that doesn't really tell me anything about you? Or is this part of your story that's helping kind of construct this narrative around who you are, the impact you've had, what you've been doing with your time? This is the former, I think, right? Just a generic
Hmm.
statement. Generic statements
Hmm.
like this can almost always be cut. They don't add anything. They're just a distraction. They don't mean anything. So those types of things we can get rid of. And then yeah, I think a lot of the rest is stuff that needs to be reworked. It's just the
Hmm.
focus is just
Hmm.
wrong. Like it's like, oh, I became more knowledgeable and aware of physician burnout. Okay, I guess. And then there's a little bit of savior complex here. And so I
Hmm.
applied to a scribe position to treat the systemic crisis. I'm like,
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry, buddy. A scribe is not going to treat physician burnout. So
Yeah,
just be careful with what you're trying to convey here.
it's a little hyperbolic. Yeah.
It is a little hyperbolic, but good first effort, and that's what we
Hmm.
try to
Hmm.
do with
Hmm.
these is we see them and then we critique, we nitpick, we try to help you grow as a writer, as a student, conveying your story. All right, so we're gonna have a little bit of time for Q&A, so stick around for 1 second. We're talking about activities. One way to track activities, a question that comes up all the time is mapped, map.com, mappd.com. Go use it for free to track out all of your activities. You get fun graphs like this that show your activities. We're actually going through a big redesign that'll be coming out here in the next few weeks. That'll be even easier to track things, even easier to see things. So go over to mapped.com. Someone asked earlier, do you need like a verifier, a contact person for something like a hobby? No, you don't. For some activities, you won't have one, or you will be that person. Mapped also lets you track all of your contact people as well. We need a
Hmm.
Mapped app. You can use Mapped on your phone. It works perfectly fine. An iPhone app costs way too much money to develop. So not coming anytime soon, unfortunately.
Right.
We do one-on-one advising. So that's what supports us as a company to help continue to build Mapped, to keep doing free workshops like this. Go check out medicalschoolhq.net/advising. Use that QR code there. And then one of the things that we explored today was group advising. You all were here in a group setting, working through these activity descriptions, and that's what we do in Application Academy. Whether it's activity descriptions, parts of personal statements, we do mock interview prep in a group setting, just like this. Um, a little bit of Application Academy, what it looks like. There's a bunch of modules in there. These are all the activities. These are not all of them, but some of them where you can go and watch me talk about all these different topics. Um, Personal statements, same thing. All these videos of personal statements, school list, team DSAS stuff, interviews, secondaries, all the content, my knowledge, Dr. Wright's knowledge, all of our team's knowledge. It's me recording the videos or on the videos, but sharing the team's knowledge. And then we record sessions. Let me show you real quick. This is actually this week's calendar. So you can see here we're on Thursday. So we had an essay session earlier today. We had TA office hours. Oops, sorry. We had TA office hours. Tomorrow, I'm doing activities. So, doing more of the same tomorrow. I'm doing activities with the team. All of these times are mountain time. That's my local time. So lots of sessions per week. You don't have to come live to sessions. You can submit stuff for review during the sessions. Everything's recorded. This is kind of what it looks like going through it. Very similar to tonight. Um, Application Academy is probably the best value thing that we offer in terms of access to the advisors, knowledge and ability to have stuff reviewed so you can make sure that you're putting forth your best application. Applying to medical school is expensive. Ideally, you only have to do it one time. Some of you mentioned that you're reapplicants to medical school. So hopefully you only have to be a reapplicant once. But you get 6 hours plus a week, 12 months of access. Our normal sessions are expensive. I'm not going to deny it. $405 are the normal kind of price for 60 minutes, although we have coupons that are out there that you can go find. Application Academy for those 12 months is basically the same price, $499 for all of that access, all of that information, all of that ability to communicate with us, to be part of a group of like-minded individuals. It's on sale today for the next week. So go check that out, applicationacademy.com. If you get FAP through AMCAS or a COMIS, you can get Application Academy for it's $300. So you can go check that out as well. And then yeah, that's it. All right, let's do some questions. I like to do questions with hands raised. So if you want to come on and ask a question, you won't be able to show your video, but you can, I'll let you unmute. Patrick.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. So I was just going to ask, I would be very interested in submitting my personal statement, current rough draft for writing review, but I am entirely relying on myself for financials, and it will take for me to save up to be able
You're
to.
breaking up, Patrick. I heard you for a little bit.
Sorry, I have headphones, but I pay for everything myself, and I'm entirely self-sufficient financially.
Yep.
Is there any type of financial discount or anything like that associated with the writing? I know you had mentioned it for the application academy, but for the writing review specifically, are there any discounts available for that based on financials?
Yeah, just shoot us an email. We'll help you out.
Awesome. Thank
Info
you so much.
team at medicalschoolhq.net.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nor.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Hi. So I had my first question was about becoming like an officer in a club or like a coordinator or something. So if you did one semester as a member or as a general volunteer, and then you were able to become like an officer or something like that, should it be one activity or two? If you had like completely different roles, for example, or
Yeah,
similar.
I think that's the key thing, right? Different roles, potentially different activities. One's leadership, one's general member. The question would be, do you even need to put a general member on there? Because that's typically a low impact type activity. Oftentimes the question comes down to, especially for AMCAS, what are your other 14 activities look like? Or 13, and do you have space for two activities? Or should you just put one and kind of put the more impactful experience as the title and the category, and then maybe the first sentence kind of explain a little bit of the other role for a split second too.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And I also had a question about hobbies and like hours pertaining to that. I mentioned that like I've been reading since I was a kid and I've been doing like book clubs
Yep.
forever and stuff like that, but nothing I haven't been keeping track of hours
Yeah.
for that. So how do I quantify those hours on my application?
Yeah. So as Scott's holding up a zero,
Cool.
it's very common to see either zero or really big numbers for hobbies. Zero is perfectly fine for a hobby. I think it's understood that it's really hard to quantify something that you kind of do all the time and you've been doing for a long time. So that's fine.
Nice. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Teresa. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
So at my workplace, I have different roles. So I do front desk, I check billing, check with the insurance, I do translating. So my question is, can I separate those different roles into different, I guess, different activities? Because they're kind of overlapping in terms of hours.
Yeah, so basically same question the last student asked is you can do whatever you want, but a lot of times that kind of stuff just falls under administration, healthcare administration job. So I don't know why you would split those up because it's
Mhm.
basically the same stuff, other than the interpreting, not translating, the interpreting, unless you were literally translating. But if you're like in the exam room with the patient and you're interpreting for the patient and the doctor, that I would consider clinical experience. The other stuff is just admin work. So there's
Mhm.
potentially two there.
Yeah, because I previously was a medical student in Vietnam. So the doctor knows that, and she kind of let me to take the history and question the patients myself and then relate that to the
Yeah.
doctors.
So you're working as a medical assistant, basically, in that role.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would put medical assistant and clinical and kind of divide, like, take those hours out of the rest of your time.
Okay, I
That's
have
good.
another question is that I used to win several national and international awards for painting as a kid, but I don't really paint anymore uh, unless for like just relief stress. Should I still mention this as a hobby and should I mention those awards?
I mean, you're uh Christina, I didn't enlist in the Air Force. I was commissioned into the Air Force. It's very different. So Teresa, I mean, you're basically saying like, I don't really paint anymore, but should I put it on there? I mean, I think you kind of answered your own question. If you paint and you want to put a hobby on there and you feel like painting is your hobby and you want to be able to talk about it, great. You can talk about it and sure, you can mention your awards on there.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mhm.
Seth.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I had a question about for collegiate athletes. I was kind of jumping around, like what hour count would it look like for a 4-year athlete at college, or what have you guys seen? Is it just a zero, like you said before, for like personal hobbies, or
I think my opinion on that is hobbies is different. I would try to estimate in terms of the time, what they're looking for is what is the level of time commitment that you're making. Now, the recognition is, generally speaking, that an intercollegiate athlete is going to have an enormous time commitment between practices and working out and the actual actually doing the game or whatever
yeah,
sport it is. So I think that what I would really concentrate on is try to estimate in an average semester, how much time are you committing or to that effort, and I would make some kind of shot at it. They're not going to obsess about that. They get it. It's foggy. So don't spend a whole lot of time at it. Just kind of estimate and then put it on there. And I would say,
okay,
over 4 years of being an intercollegiate activity, it's probably going to be in the thousands.
yeah. Also had another question about that. So I remember for one of the examples, you said to stay away from statements that talk about, waking up early and, how strenuous, things are because it's kind of trying to prove how hard of a worker you are. For something like being an athlete, like what would I lean to then to speak on that besides like, my stats? Like,
I think just the knowledge that you're an athlete, like it says those things, right? It already talks about the commitment necessary to do everything and gives context to the rest of your application in terms of the other activities that you can do, the grades that you're able to get, because your studying time is going to be less than the typical student and all that stuff. So and that's where the hours come from, right? And that's why Scott was like, don't put 0, try to estimate. And I don't think it really matters, like waking up early versus waking up at 10 o'clock. Your hours are your hours. They're going to distract from everything else, being a typical pre-med student.
Yeah. Okay. I was speaking more so like of a, if I give a specific story about something, but okay, I get what you're saying.
And it may work in that specific story. So try it and see what it looks like.
Okay.
The one example that I was pointing out here was just it was a little bit leaning on, I work really hard, I can take tests, I'm up really early, like, and it was just like, you're kind of painting a picture of, I know what doctors do and I can do that already.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. What sport do you play?
I play basketball at Cal State for
Nice.
my 4 years there as a biochem major.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Good luck, Seth.
Thanks, Seth.
Thank you.
Got them.
Hello.
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 Hi. So 2 questions. I'm currently reapplying this cycle, or planning to at least. Um, so a lot of my activities are going to carry over, obviously. And I was wondering, so when I'm reapplying, can I doubt I can reuse a lot of the experiences descriptions, but like how much of it can I reuse, if that makes any sense?
Scott, want to tackle that one?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a very difficult question to answer. I don't think, generally speaking, so you didn't ask about this, but personal statement absolutely has got to be different. You can't just reuse the personal statement. You got to redo that. When it comes to activity descriptions, I would say look at the activities that you did last year and see where you have differences that have come out over the past year, particularly if it's an activity that is ongoing, that you have a different story or you have something else that you've done, or whatever. And there may be other ones that really haven't changed that much, and maybe it's something that you did but you don't do anymore, and it was a shadowing thing, or it was a clinical thing that you did for 3 months and then it was over. So there may be some that are very similar, if not very, very much the same. But I would say, one of the things that we encourage reapplicants to do is you need to be looking reflectively at why you think you didn't get in. What was that all about? And where do I need to make some changes? And part of that is looking deeply at your written work, the personal statement, the activity descriptions, secondary applications, and evaluate, am I talking about the right things? Am I talking about the things that I've done that in meaningful ways? And so this is an opportunity to look at every one of these. And yes, I agree that there may be parts that you can reuse, but in general, I would say you want to look at with a very critical eye at what you've written previously and how you want to move forward with those.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another quick question that I had. One of my shadowing experiences was really impactful to me, but it was during high school, actually. So could I still include that in my activities, or just go ahead and cut it out?
I would say no, but
How would you put it in your list to show that it was impactful?
Well, like I would group all my shadowing like opportunities like into one
Yeah.
thing, but the reflection that I would write about would be for that one like shadowing experience, which was in high school. I have been doing shadowing like all throughout like the last few years. So I do have like that continuity, but that start date, the reflection I'd be talking about would be during high school.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't reflect on it, reflect on the high school stuff, as Scott already said, in your application. There's again, there's this button. There are no rules. TMDSAS is very specific about high school stuff stays off the application. A COMIS, the DO application, says ideally activities are after high school, or college activities. AMCAS doesn't specifically mention that anywhere that I've seen. But it's a rule of thumb that any advisor will tell you. The high school stuff stays off. And then again, there's some wiggle room of like if you started a project in high school that kind of carried over into college, putting that start date a little bit earlier potentially. But I think what you're asking is a little bit different.
No, okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Sure.
All right. Let's get one more here. One more. Akua?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So my question is, well, I have multiple questions, but the first one is, I'm applying this year to med school, but I don't have any shadowing experiences. It's been really hard
Get
to
some
find
shadowing.
one. Okay.
Get some. Like,
So, all right. And my other question is,
where are you located? This is the power of groups. Where are you located?
Massachusetts, Worcester.
Oh, you're in Worcester, Worcester. All right. Anyone, do you have access to a car and can travel?
Yes, I can travel.
Okay. So anywhere, Boston, Connecticut, Maine, maybe
How do I
into
find
Vermont. No,
like,
hold on.
okay.
Any of you here, there's 125 of you here. Look at that. Lifespan in Rhode Island has great shadowing opportunities. St. Vincent Hospital and Worcester is great. I'm from there. So if Aku, if you want to put your email address and these people can
Okay.
email you and connect you. This is the power of community at work.
Thank you.
Now it's like, okay, what about me in Houston? Yeah. All right. So that's the first question.
Yes. My other question is that I volunteer as a hospice volunteer. So I go to the nursing
it.
homes. And I want to know, is that considered medical, clinical, or is that like just...
I consider hospice clinical. I think it's one of the best clinical experiences.
Okay. And my other question is, my first year of college, I was a tour guide, but I had to stop when COVID happened because we went back home. So I don't know if I should include it in my experiences because I really didn't do it for a long time.
It's up to you.
Uh,
Yeah, it's up to you. Again, the activity section is not something that has to categorize and catalog everything that you've done. If you did something and it wasn't super impactful, which this sounds like it wasn't, don't put it on. That's
but
fine.
if I did, it wouldn't hurt, right?
Potentially, someone may go, "Why are you
Okay.
putting this on here? It doesn't seem very impactful." So yeah, I think it's hard to be exact there.
Okay.
Do what feels right in your heart.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My last question is that I did research with my professor when I was in college. It was the same research topic, but I did it first as a research assistant, and then after I did an independent study. So I wanted to know, do I do that as 2 experiences, or is it like just put it as 1 experience?
There are no rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, do what works for your application. There's no rules there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Dr. Scott Wright, tell the students how they can hang out with you in Application Academy and why you love Application Academy so much.
I love Application Academy. I am there every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Central on Wednesdays. And I love it because of the very thing that you said just a few minutes ago, Ryan, the community. Mm-hmm. This is a community effort. It is collaboration, not competition. And so this is our ability as a group of people to say, hey, we're going to work together on this to make a difference in all of our lives. And so I think Application Academy is awesome.
It is awesome. Again, it's one of the most value pack things that we do
Yep.
for basically the price of a single 1 hour session. You get lots of time with us, lots of interaction with us
Yep.
throughout the course of your application to make sure that you're putting forth the best application possible. Applicationacademy.com. Go check that out. If you have any questions, team at medicalschoolhq.net. I hope this session was helpful for you all. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.